This is Warhawk Beyond 2040, bringing to you another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And March 2nd, 2009 marks 16 years ago that history was made on Raw when Shawn Michaels defeated Vladimir Kozlov to earn the right to challenge The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, thus beginning the renewal of a legendary rivalry. And for today's special edition, I am going to be talking about the success and failures of The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels feud from March 2009 to March 2010. So, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had been in the company for almost the same length of time. Shawn Michaels made his debut as one half of the Rockers with Marty Jannetty in 1988, and The Undertaker, 2 years later, made his WWE debut in 1990 at Survivor Series. And for the most part of their entire existence in the WWF/WWE, they had never crossed paths. They teamed up on a couple of occasions, but for the most part, they never ever faced in the ring until 1987, which led to not one, not two, but three singles matches, two in 1997 and one in 1998. And the final time that The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels faced was in a casket match at the Royal Rumble 98 when Shawn Michaels injured his back, thus putting him on the shelf for 4 years. And he would compete in his final ever match at WrestleMania 14 when he dropped the WWF World title to Stone Cold Steve Austin, effectively passing the torch, which led to the birth of the Attitude Era. So, Shawn Michaels was, for all intents and purposes, done. He was on a hiatus, nursing a injured back, but also dealing with a lot of personal demons, mostly drug related, while The Undertaker continued to thrive and enjoy massive success, not only as the Dead Man, but also as the American Badass. So while Shawn Michaels would make various appearances in non wrestling roles on TV throughout the Attitude Era, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels never ever crossed paths once. They never had any interaction whatsoever on TV, apart from one very brief time at the end of Judgment Day 2000 when The Undertaker made his return as the biker and interfered in the 60-minute Iron Man match between The Rock and Triple H, and Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. And after Shawn Michaels disqualified The Rock and awarded the WWF title to Triple H, The Undertaker began stalking Shawn Michaels, and that was pretty much it. We never saw these two interact ever again. So, fast forward to 2002. So, WWE had the brand split where wrestlers would compete on Raw and other wrestlers would compete on SmackDown. And Shawn Michaels made his return in 2002 as the newest member of the NWO. And The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels never crossed paths because a couple of months later, The Undertaker would jump to SmackDown, where he would stay for pretty much most of his career. So Shawn Michaels was representing the red brand on Raw, and The Undertaker was representing the blue brand on SmackDown. So for most of the Ruthless Aggression era, we never saw The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels cross paths once until 2007. Now, 2007 was an interesting year for both The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Both of them were red hot going into the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. The Undertaker had made his intentions very clear that he was going to win the Royal Rumble for the first time in his career and go on to challenge for the world title at WrestleMania 23. Shawn Michaels, on the other hand, made his intentions very clear that the showstopper was back and he was looking to win the Royal Rumble as well and go on to WrestleMania 23 and challenge for the world title. So it was quite clear that the Royal Rumble match was going to come down to The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. So during the 30-man Royal Rumble match, the final four came down to Edge, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker. And after Shawn Michaels eliminated both Rated RKO members, Edge and Randy Orton, it came down to The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels as the final two. The entire arena popped and went absolutely crazy. Now, this marked the first time in 9 years that The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were in the same ring at the same time. And it seemed only fitting that this exciting confrontation took place at the Royal Rumble because this was the same event that The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had their last match in the ring one on one. And JBL's call was absolutely epic. JBL said, "How long has it been since we've seen this? The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels." Couldn't have said it better myself. So for the next 10 minutes, we pretty much got an unofficial singles match within the Royal Rumble match itself. Undertaker and Shawn Michaels went at it, and it was just magic. And both tried to eliminate the other, and Undertaker, in the end, was able to avoid a super kick and dump Shawn Michaels over the top rope, thus winning the Royal Rumble match for the first time in his career. So it was quite clear, just watching that little exchange, that the seeds were planted for a future match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. We didn't know when, we didn't know where, but we knew at some point in the near future The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were going to cross paths once again. So for the next couple of months in 2007, we would see The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels reluctantly work together as partners with John Cena and Batista, and we would see them go at it again at No Way Out 2007 in the main event in a interpromotional tag match pitting The Undertaker and Batista, who were representing SmackDown, versus Shawn Michaels and John Cena from Raw. And we essentially had two WrestleMania main events colliding in the same match. So we got another little interaction between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. So anytime these two got in the ring together, it was magic and the fans felt it. And it looked like they were really pushing hard for this match to take place. But like I said, we just had to wait and see when this was going to take place. So after WrestleMania 23, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels would not cross paths again until the Royal Rumble 2008. But this time, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels would start the Royal Rumble match. Undertaker would enter at number one, and Shawn Michaels would enter as number two. So the two guys who closed out the Royal Rumble in 2007 were now opening it in 2008. And of course, we got another exciting exchange between two of WWE's biggest legends. So it was obvious that they were really going to pull the trigger at some point, that we were going to see this match. When, where, who knows? But it looked like we were heading in that direction. So, fast forward into 2009, Shawn Michaels was forced to work for JBL, and at the Royal Rumble 2009 pay per view, Shawn Michaels bumped into The Undertaker backstage. No words were exchanged whatsoever, just a stare down, and The Undertaker very calmly delivered a short and chilling warning to Shawn Michaels. He said to Shawn Michaels, "Sometimes it's hell trying to get to heaven," and quietly walked off. What did this mean? We would have to wait for that answer a couple months later. At No Way Out 2009, Shawn Michaels defeated JBL and regained his freedom, so he was no longer working for JBL, and Shawn Michaels had his sights set on WrestleMania 25, and he declared that he was going to be the one to challenge The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. So the chances of an Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania match was looking very likely that it could happen, and we would finally get that answer delivered when Shawn Michaels, on the March 2nd, 2009 edition of Raw, he defeated Vladimir Kozlov, thus handing him his first ever loss and earned the right to challenge The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. The Undertaker showed up on Raw to stare down Shawn Michaels, and it was made official. The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels was going to happen at WrestleMania 25 with The Undertaker's undefeated streak on the line. And this marked the beginning of a renewal of one of the greatest rivalries of all time. So, what makes the second installment of the Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels feud different to their first one was this time round, the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were both beloved figures, both faces, and both adored by fans. In their first installments of their rivalry back in the 90s, Shawn Michaels was the arrogant, cocky heel, and The Undertaker was the beloved anti face. So back then, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels shared an intense disdain for one another. The Undertaker made it his personal mission to destroy Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels made it his goal to rile up and get under The Undertaker's skin as much as possible. But this time round, the rivalry was based on mutual respect, and while both were faces during the build up, Shawn Michaels would take on the heel role and play mind games with The Undertaker in an attempt to get the psychological advantage going into their epic WrestleMania 25 encounter. Now, what I loved about this installment of their rivalry was The Undertaker wasn't as over the top in his character like he was back in the 90s. He was still very much the dead man, but he spoke like a normal person and was a lot more calmer. Shawn Michaels wasn't as outrageous as he was in the 90s. He was a lot more calmer, but still very defiant. And the segments between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were excellent. Their promo work was tremendous. And of course, there were lots of callbacks to their old rivalry from the 90s. And unlike a lot of The Undertaker's past WrestleMania opponents, Shawn Michaels wasn't intimidated by The Undertaker. He knew him very well and had an advantage over him that The Undertaker had never ever defeated Shawn Michaels in a one-on-one match. So that became one of the main focal points of the build-up. And the build-up for The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 25 was based on Heaven versus Hell. So that made it very interesting. Shawn Michaels, of course, as we know, is a born again Christian in real life, and some of that was used for this build up. So he represented the light, and of course, The Undertaker represented the darkness. So throughout the build up, on a couple of occasions, we saw The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels reluctantly team up as they faced JBL and Vladimir Kozlov, and Shawn Michaels would deliver sweet chin music to The Undertaker when his back was turned. And pretty much throughout the whole build up, Shawn Michaels was 10 steps ahead of The Undertaker. No matter what Undertaker tried to do, Shawn Michaels always got the last word and always seemed to have the advantage. Shawn Michaels at one stage even cut a promo in a graveyard declaring that he was going to be the one to end the undefeated streak of The Undertaker. At one point, Shawn Michaels dressed up as The Undertaker, all clad in white, and this would anger the dead man as he would chase Shawn Michaels out of the ring. And in storyline, Undertaker took full credit for injuring Shawn Michaels' back and putting him on the shelf for years when he said, "Yes, Shawn Michaels, you're right. I have never ever been able to defeat you one on one. Never, not once. But may I remind you that the last time that we did do battle, you spent the next 5 agonizing years in pain trying to recover." So it was obvious that Undertaker was referring to the Royal Rumble 98 when Shawn Michaels injured his back. What I enjoyed the most about this iteration of The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels was the references and continuity of their 90s rivalry. Because normally, what WWE traditionally like to do is gloss over the past and try to pretend that two guys had never faced each other to more or less insult the fans' intelligence. But I like the fact that Shawn Michaels mentioned that Undertaker had never been able to defeat him one on one. And I like the fact that The Undertaker also confirmed and addressed that he has never defeated Shawn Michaels one on one. But I also like that in storyline, Undertaker took full responsibility that he was the one who injured Shawn Michaels' back and put him on the shelf for years. So that made the build up more personal. And this wasn't just about Undertaker extending his undefeated record. Undertaker had something to prove. He needed to beat Shawn Michaels because he had never done it before. So that made it more important for The Undertaker to win this match. And of course, Shawn Michaels, being Mr. WrestleMania, he wanted to be the one to hand The Undertaker his first ever loss at WrestleMania. So something clearly had to give. And at WrestleMania 25, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels put on what many consider to be the greatest match in WrestleMania history. They completely stole the show. And after two tombstones, The Undertaker was finally able to defeat Shawn Michaels. So the black cloud that was hanging over Undertaker's head had finally passed. So after 2 years of teasing, we finally got The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, and it didn't disappoint. So after WrestleMania 25, both The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels would take a hiatus, and both would return in the summer of 2009. Shawn Michaels would return and rejoin Triple H and reform D-Generation X, and they would go on to feud with legacy members Ted DiBiase Jr. and Cody Rhodes, while The Undertaker returned at SummerSlam 2009 and feuded with CM Punk and eventually defeat him for the World Heavyweight title. And during the second late half of 2009, we would see the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels reluctantly team up with each other, and they would constantly tease tension. So it was clear that at some point we were going to see a rematch between the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. But we would just have to wait and see when that was going to take place. So at the WWE Slammy Awards, The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 25 match was voted Match of the Year, and Shawn Michaels came out and said, "You know something, Undertaker? I know I can beat you, so I'm challenging you one more time at WrestleMania. What do you say?" So throughout the first early part of 2010, Shawn Michaels would press the issue and ask The Undertaker one more time, "You and me at WrestleMania. What do you say?" Undertaker turned down Shawn Michaels' challenge and said, "I have nothing to prove to you, Shawn Michaels. My answer to you is no." So Shawn Michaels began this obsessive, fueled quest to try and get The Undertaker's attention and get him to agree to a rematch, this time at WrestleMania 26. So after coming short at the Royal Rumble 2010 match, Shawn Michaels would eventually cost The Undertaker the world title at Elimination Chamber 2010, and then The Undertaker finally accepted Shawn Michaels' challenge on one condition. If Shawn Michaels was able to defeat The Undertaker, he would end the streak. But if The Undertaker defeated Shawn Michaels, then Shawn Michaels' career would be over. And Shawn Michaels declared to The Undertaker and said, "If I can't beat you at WrestleMania, Undertaker, I have no career. I accept." So throughout most of the build up, it was more or less the same thing that we saw during their 2009 build up. But this time, Shawn Michaels' career on the line versus Undertaker's undefeated streak made the match even more bigger. Now, as far as the match itself, it was great, but I still think WrestleMania 25 was a little bit better. That's just my opinion. Not taking anything away from WrestleMania 26, it was still good. I still enjoyed it a lot, but I felt that their first one in 2009 was so much better. So after three tombstones, The Undertaker defeated Shawn Michaels for a second time, thus retiring him for good. And in a show of mutual respect, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels shook hands and embraced as The Undertaker left the ring and Shawn Michaels said goodbye to all of the fans. This would bring an end to their rivalry once and for all. Now, after Shawn Michaels' retirement, we would still see The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels cross paths with each other. They would interact with each other before WrestleMania 27, when Shawn Michaels declared that Triple H was going to be the one to end The Undertaker's undefeated streak. And of course, as we know, Shawn Michaels would be the special guest referee for the Undertaker versus Triple H Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania 28. And then eventually, Shawn Michaels would come out of retirement for one more match in 2018 at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, pitting DX versus The Undertaker and Kane, which, quite frankly, I would much prefer to pretend that match never happened. So, The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels renewed their rivalry in 2009 and it finished for good in 2010. So, in terms of the success and failures of The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels 2009 to 2010 rivalry, a complete success. Different, but a complete success. Very enjoyable. Love the fact that this time round, both The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were baby faces, although Shawn Michaels was the heel in the build up, but Shawn Michaels never actually turned heel in the traditional sense. And they delivered two back to back WrestleMania classics, and both were at the top of their game, at the peak of their career, and it seemed fitting that Shawn Michaels' final opponent would be none other than The Undertaker. All due respect to Triple H, I know Triple H and Shawn Michaels have a very long history, but for me personally, I feel that The Undertaker is a much more iconic rival for Shawn Michaels. And for Shawn Michaels to wrestle his final match, it just made perfect sense that The Undertaker was the final opponent and he would be the one to retire Shawn Michaels, especially as they had such an unbelievable rivalry going all the way back to 1997. It just seemed fitting from a story point of view that Undertaker should be the one to end Shawn Michaels' career. It just made perfect sense. So, you know, for The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, they've had some of the greatest matches of all time. Some were historic, some are underrated. It just made perfect sense, in my opinion. So, anyway, that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels 2009 2010 feud? Did you enjoy it? Which was your favourite match? WrestleMania 25 or WrestleMania 26? What was your favourite moment from this rivalry? Was it their promos? Was it when Shawn Michaels cost The Undertaker the world title? Or was it when Shawn Michaels challenged The Undertaker and Undertaker refused to face him again? And do you think it was fitting that The Undertaker was the final opponent for Shawn Michaels? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.